Hey guys, it's Sid with SVTPerformance.com, and I'm here enjoying this beautiful morning in Lexington, Kentucky with the Bronco Raptor, and also with this little camper I've been towing behind it. Got a comprehensive tow test coming up here, pretty much towing at the weight limit of what the Bronco Raptor can pull. Just picked this little rig up not that long ago. It's replacing a big diesel pusher RV we had that was kind of limited in a number of places we could go. We wanted something where we could go off-road a little bit, get away from people more, and 40-foot diesel pusher is not really made to do that, but Bronco Raptor is, and this little No Boundaries camper is. It's a 19.6 model for those who are interested, and I like that it has double axles. We do have a weight distribution hitch on it, and a few other little odds and ends we've added, but it tows really nicely. The Bronco Raptor, of course, has all the power in the world you would need to tow something like this. The 3-liter EcoBoost is fantastic engine, and 10-speed transmission, like 470 gears, basically F-150 running gear, brakes, things like that. So that's no issue. The issue with towing with one of these things is the rear springs are pretty soft, like any Raptor, which is what you want for off-roading, but it sort of limits you on towing. But the load leveling hitch, weight distribution hitch, whatever you want to call it, that helps quite a bit. This is the Blue Ox brand, and if you guys are interested in this particular one, I will put a link in the description below. Bought this from Camping World, but you can actually get them on Amazon and everything else. I'll let you know the exact model. But this little camper is pretty neat. If you guys want to see more about that, I can do a full little rig rundown on that in the future. But I think I'm going to be using this quite often as my tow test, basically. So when Ford gives us a truck or SUV or something to tow, this thing loaded up with water and all that stuff can be right around 5,000 pounds, and to me that's a good weight to test most like half-ton trucks and things like that, because that's sort of typical of what a lot of people would pull with a half-ton. So we might use that more in the future, but I'll give you guys a full comprehensive review a little bit later on the Bronco Raptor towing this. I'm going to have well over 1,500 miles towing with this setup right now. I can tell you fuel mileage is not the greatest. We're averaging about 11.5 miles per gallon probably, but not too bad at all overall. So what I really like with a setup like this is it allows us to come to places like this here in Lexington. This serves like a brewery, a cider place, ice cream, fantastic pizza, distillery, all in this area, and we're able to just park over here in the corner, stay all night. There's a program called Harvest Host that allows you to do that, and this sort of frees us up to do all that. So good times. All right guys, forgive the brief intermission here, but if you're going to be towing with any vehicle, not just a Bronco Raptor, but I mean anything, and you're towing something that has trailer brakes, you need to pick up one of these. This is the trailer brake controller kit. It's made by Ford Accessories. Part number is VM2DZ-2C006-A. This is specifically for the Bronco, but there's a bunch of them out there, and I picked this one up from Lethal Performance, and we're going to install it in this thing. I'm not going to do an install video on this because honestly, I'm probably going to install it differently than what the instructions or everybody else recommends. I'm just going to do it my way. But this thing is pretty slick, and I definitely suggest you pick one up if you're going to be towing. Something with brakes. Comes with everything you need. Wiring harnesses, zip ties, the little brake controller in here. I've used these particular units on other vehicles. They work really well and pretty easy to install. Pretty plug and play. The worst part is if you're messing around here underneath the dash, everything is razor sharp, so basically your hands are going to look like you punch a cheese grater after you install this thing. But it's not a hard install for the most part, at least not technically difficult. Like I said, pick this one up from Lethal Performance. You can get yours wherever you like, but I highly suggest you pick one up. So we all know the real test is to just get out on the road and show you guys what this is all about. So put a few cameras on the thing, so let's go for a ride and talk about how the Bronco Raptor actually tows. Like I mentioned earlier, this is pretty much at the limit of the Bronco Raptor's stated capabilities. Let's just put it that way. There's just some design features that limits what this thing can tow, namely the suspension. The suspension's very soft, which is what you would want in an off-roading situation. This was not designed from the outset to be a heavy towing vehicle. So you're going to get a 4,500 pound tow rating. The 19.6 Nobo that I have behind us is right at 4,200 pounds dry. You know it's going to go up when you start adding food, water, fridge full of beer, you know, your camping essentials, some steaks, things like that. So you're going to be basically pushing the limit on yield Raptor here. That being said, this thing handles it like a champ with the Blue Ox weight distribution hitch, and basically the Whipple intercooler I think really helps as well. I've towed this thing, the Raptor now has about 5,400 miles. I've probably got nearly 3,000 miles of towing this camper. We've been from Bowling Green, Kentucky, down to Florida, all around that way, through the mountains in North Carolina, West Virginia, you name it. We've been there all up and down the East Coast. And I've never had a single issue where I thought the Raptor was down on power. The EcoBoost makes great torque. We do have a JB4 module installed on this thing, but I turned that off because I don't want to add any boost over factory settings. I do run in tow haul mode, and I do have a little screen up here that is Bluetooth connected to a camera on the back of the camper. That to me is pretty important because these mirrors on a Bronco are not really set up for towing, especially something as wide as this camper is. It would be helpful if you didn't have the blind spot warning system. To me, I feel like it would be anyways, because then you'd have the little spotter mirrors. But this has the Bliss system, so we lose that little spotter mirror, and you'll hear me complain about that more in the future in other videos, but I would much rather have the little spotter mirrors than an LED. That being said, we're going over a rough piece of pavement now on this bridge, and as you can see, I'm very comfortable. The suspension's handling it well. The track width of the Raptor, I feel, is an enormous asset when it comes to towing because this thing is so wide. It's the same width as an F-150 Raptor. And really underneath, you're getting a lot of F-150 Raptor components like knuckles, things like that. The brakes are very F-150-like. There's some shared componentry there. So it's very heavy duty for a vehicle this size. On the road, she's comfortable, especially once I got that hitch set up the way I wanted it. It takes like 3 or 4 times out to make all the adjustments because there's 4 or 5 different adjustment levels you can do to that. But once you get it tuned in, there's no shimming, no shaking, no weird undulations across bridges, nothing. It just soaks it up great. The only real downside I've seen, and I mean, what are you going to do, is the mileage is not great. You're going to look at between, I'll be conservative here and say 9 to 11.5 miles per gallon, depending on your speed and what kind of terrain you're in. I've seen a low in the 9s. I won't say it was 9, but it was in the 9s. I think we're averaging, we'll say 10.5 over everything. So plan on, say, 10 miles to the gallon average, towing something like this with a Bronco Raptor, which is about what you would expect with a full-size truck. Same deal. This is a 5,000 pound plus vehicle. It's going to have the dynamics of a 5,000 pound vehicle. You're going to get the best mileage. It's not a diesel, it's a turbocharged direct injected gas motor. That being said, she's got plenty of power, over 400 pound-feet of torque. These little nano EcoBoost engines are just, they are beasts. Really, really pleased with that. It gets up and goes. I have no complaints there. Like I mentioned, we did add that trailer brake controller. It works great, especially on this camper we have, because it's a dual axle setup. So I've got 2 extra sets of brakes. I have never had the least concern about stopping. It's always stopped perfectly. Stops in a short distance. I've not had to do a panic stop or anything, but I have no qualms about towing it brake wise. So if you're going to tow anything with trailer brakes, make sure you get a trailer brake controller. It's a huge, huge asset, and you wouldn't want to do without it. But on the road, it's you can see I take my hands off the wheel, it goes straight down the road. Everything's great. I can't complain about anything other than fuel mileage. But what are you going to do? You're towing your house with you. And this thing, I'm able to take it places we could never take a big diesel pusher. Had it up on a mountain at a winery with breweries all over the place. That's the kind of stuff I like to do. I don't want, 100 screaming kids running through a KOA around me. That's just not my style. This thing has the ground clearance, especially being towed by this Raptor. It's got traction for days when it's got this kind of weight on the back end of it, and I can just drag this thing wherever I want to. I've never had any issue towing it anywhere. Now, of course, you're not going to go over super, super rough terrain with this. I don't think anything that labels itself as an off-road camper, you're not going to be able to off-road with it to the capabilities of the Bronco. You're just not. That wouldn't make any sense. But, uneven terrain, dirt, gravel roads, some light off-roading, this thing is perfectly capable of handling it. Even with the weight distribution hitch, you will hear some pops, like I just heard one right there. You'll get that occasionally, but that's because it's metal on metal contact with those big leaf springs in there that's taking up that weight, the extra ton weight. So you'll get some noise, but that's just the nature of the beast. You're going to get that with this style of hitch. And the reason I like this style of hitch is because you can back up with it. You can't do that with every single kind of weight distribution hitch. This one you can. So I'm willing to give up a little bit of serenity, I guess you would say, in order to be able to back up and maneuver better, which is, important when you're in an off-road situation. You might need to back up, turn around, do something like that. This thing is rock solid though. Turns well, tracks level. I don't get blown around on the freeway, which is a huge relief, and a lot of that is due to just the track width and the weight of this setup. You're rolling around 5 tons here. It's not just going to move around a ton. That's one of the great things, and it's so wide. The Raptor is the same width as this camper. The Raptor's 10 inches wider than a standard Bronco, so you've got that big advantage going for you. Super stable, tows really well. Like I said, we're pretty much at the limit. If you wanted to do something a little lighter weight, I would have absolutely no holdups with a Bronco Raptor towing, especially something like the smaller no boundaries campers. If you want one that you can really go off-roading with and get some of those small ones, they are truly made to go on trails and things like that. This would be a great vehicle for it. I mean, you've got all the power in the world. You've got the suspension to go off-road and be able to drag that thing over uneven terrain. But for our uses, going to races, going down by the river, this thing is a really good setup. And if you guys have any questions, just let me know. Like I said, this little camper we've been dragging around for almost 3,000 miles. Truck's got 5,400 on it now. No complaints whatsoever. Take it out every chance I get, and don't be afraid to tow, is all I can say. Is get out there, get your proper equipment set up, trailer brake controllers, proper hitch. Rear view camera definitely helps, especially when you're backing into an unfamiliar spot at night. Pretty important. But definitely just get out there and live the lifestyle that you want to, that off-road lifestyle with your Bronco. Don't hold back and be afraid and think, oh, you can't tow something. You can. It'll do it. The frame is up for it. The hitch, that's one of the other issues. It's a little thinner gauge metal than, say, an F-150. That was a compromise they made because they wanted to go for off-road performance versus towing performance. But if you're within, a few hundred pounds here or there of the spec on this thing, you'll be fine. We haven't seen any unusual tire wear, nothing like that. But if you guys have any specific questions about how this thing handles and tows, head over to SVTPerformance.com. I've got a link in the description below. We got a thread with this truck in it talking about towing this thing. So if you have any questions, post them up over there. That way they're on the internet forever for people to find. People don't search YouTube comment section. So if you ask me questions there, a lot of times I'll miss it. But if you post it up over on SVTP in that link I've provided, I will definitely answer it. And if you guys have any suggestions for other videos you'd like to see, post them up, let me know. I'd be happy to go out and shoot something specific for you guys. But I hope you find this enjoyable and informative. And if you have any questions, let me know. And as always, please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. And head over to SVTPerformance.com for all the latest news, reviews, and information on your favorite Ford-powered vehicles.